this. Well, bro, I'm pumped that you jumped on the podcast with me. I definitely wanted to have you on mainly because you have a completely different outlook to fitness. And I think more of like personally, it's not, we might actually see fitness the same way because we went ahead and had the same education. But as far as like what we do personally, I'm not a runner, except I would say like the last 2 or 3 weeks, dude, I've been putting in some miles. I did 13 miles a couple
Oh,
weeks
okay.
ago. This week I've been working on getting my 5K time down. So I have been dabbling with it, but I don't have a lot of experience with even programming anything with like middle distance. So I'm excited that you jumped on.
Absolutely.
So the first thing I was going to ask is why did you get into this type of career? Kind of like tell the people about yourself. Good old Daniel
For,
Frazee.
for exercise science, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like exercise science and like what got you into this, and just I guess a background on yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, well, I guess just to start with, I first and foremost just enjoyed fitness. Uh, Being in sports most of my life, I think that was just very prominent for me. And as I kind of learned more on the science side of fitness, made me realize more and more about just the human body, how it works and how it moves, and just wanting to help improve people, help people achieve their goals that they have, and so on. So I think that was just the main reason why I wanted to get into exercise science more. And as I was in the classes, as I learned more about the the just information that was taught, I think I just grew my passion more. So
Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. So it was a sports kind of push into exercise science.
yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. Okay. That's kind of, I guess that's kind of where I was at with it. I think that's where Joe has been with it. Um, it gives you a lot of experience with a variety types of performance, exercises, fitness, different levels of fitness. You just learn a lot from sports, and I think that's kind of a good starting point for even myself, and obviously it sounds like you too. What did you actually play in high school?
Yeah, so high school, I played through my junior year of football,
Oh,
ran track
sweet.
all 4 years, and then went on to run track and field in college as well. So yeah,
Dude, I actually did not know you played football.
really, yeah,
Yes, I'm serious.
fun fact.
Until
Yeah,
your junior year, or did you play through junior year?
I played through junior year, so I played from
Wow.
seventh grade through junior year. And there was a moment in the game when I was blindsided by a end that I realized maybe this isn't my best sport, and
Mm,
maybe I can benefit from doing cross country my senior year and doing better at the running thing. So
yeah. And I'd say you did because clearly it helped get you into college and pay for college.
absolutely,
Yeah, that's a
yeah.
huge deal. So actually with football, like going all the way up into almost senior year, like what was that like? Like quitting senior year, what was that like?
Yeah, it was bittersweet. I would definitely say. Um, just years of building that community with friends on the team, and just having the passion for the sport, just enjoying it. I think it just got to a point that it became stagnant for me.
Mm,
Um, Not just that not to say I didn't like the sport, um, but just for me, just monotonous going to practice. And um, I guess with track, I saw more improvements uh, for myself, and
yeah.
it was easier for me to get by day in and day out.
Okay. Okay. So it just wasn't where the passion lied.
Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
so.
Okay. That makes
And
sense. Well, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I mean, that's with everything in life. You learn from experience, and you find what you want to find your niche in, and find what you enjoy, and find what you don't necessarily like as much.
Yes, that's huge. And even like honing in on like exercise and performance. Yeah, we talked the other day and you kind of talked about kind of like future stuff, which I'll ask you at the end. We can talk about future stuff at the end.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, I'm excited to ask you about that too. So, okay, so what are some, in your opinion, because again, you're a college athlete, you're now a fitness professional, you're done with your Bachelor of Science degree, you're getting into like finding where your niches lie and kind of where your passion lies as well. So, like for you, I want to hear like what do you think like is the big difference between resistance training and kind of like running type workouts? Because especially middle distance, because when I was thinking about this, I'm thinking if we're talking about glycolytic system and anaerobic activities, obviously resistance training lies in that field. But there's a lot of running that does too, like sprints, of course. Depending on your how fast your sprint is or how long the distance is, even you might not even be using like your full glycolytic system. You might be using your phosphagen creatine
Hmm.
system. So that's even a sector in itself that I can get to in a different podcast on energy
Sure.
systems. But so I guess like what are the big differences for you? Just like going through college and even now, like within your own workouts, what are the big differences between the resistance training and the running type workouts that you do?
For sure. So I guess let me give a little background. Wanted
Hmm.
to talk a bit about the energy systems because I think that plays a major role in the difference.
Totally.
Absolutely, there is a huge difference with resistance training, with weights, and the running training that I had done in college and in high school as well. So for myself as a middle distance runner, I was considered a anaerobic athlete. And so what that meant was most of my performance led to uh, building to a lactic threshold, um, and definitely hitting that that lactic acid buildup that everyone loves. I know,
Yeah.
but for me, I guess resistance training definitely needed to be connected with running. Just not to, I mean, just to be a stronger athlete, for your speed, for your running economy, and
Mm,
efficiency of running, um, and also avoiding possible injuries. And I think that was a huge thing that I saw throughout college, not just for myself, but for other athletes that, to put it short, the stronger you are, your muscles are going to build, and it's going to be easier for your body to tolerate more. So when it
okay.
comes to the running training, it's very important to incorporate your resistance training. So kind of to get into the differences, a lot of the running training that I was doing was hitting that glycolysis energy system. For a lot of sprinters, you're running under 20 seconds or less. You're really hitting that type 2 fast twitch muscles, and you're not necessarily getting in, like you were saying, to that anaerobic metabolism. Um, Whereas for myself, I was a 400, 800 runner. For
Okay.
runners, or I guess people that don't know about running, that's 1-2 laps around the track. So
That helps
definitely
me because
60 second,
I didn't know that.
2 minute range um, of high intense uh, running. And probably, I would say you're running at an 85, 90% or higher intensity. and you're definitely going to hit that lactic acid much more than when I was training in the gym with my weights.
Okay,
And
okay.
so
That's it. Yeah, go ahead. Keep going on
I,
that because that makes a lot more sense because you're dabbling with
yeah,
lactate thresholds in the gym, but on a completely different level.
absolutely. So for me, I enjoy hit high intensity intervals and training of that muscular endurance, but as well as incorporating some strength as well,
Hmm.
which we'll get at, and what I kind of want to focus on right now. But um, and with the hit and the circuit training, I know can be easier to hit that lactic threshold. Um, than maybe doing a 1 to 2% max on squat or bench. So yeah, I think a lot of my training was making myself tolerate that 85% or more intensity. That way I would be able to be more efficient in my races and I wouldn't exhaust myself um, as much. I would be already acclimated to that type of training because all our workouts were 85% or more.
Mm.
And so that was that was the love-hate relationship.
Yeah, you don't say. Good night.
So
Okay,
that's yeah. Go ahead.
so what I'm hearing is you're doing a lot of anaerobic activities in the gym, but you is this so during college you even focused a little bit more on like hit training, high intensity interval training, or different type of cycle training. So maybe like push-ups into pull-ups into sit-ups instead of the standard, let's just say like bodybuilding or powerlifting type movements of like 3 sets of 10, because you wanted to get more adapted to hitting that lactate threshold that would be similar on the field. Because I can see how, like with my experience, I could say, well, if you do 3 sets of 15, you'll hit a lactate threshold. But
Mm,
in your opinion, you're like, yes, but if I'm going to do one activity that's going to give 85% to hit my lactate threshold, I can't say I'm going to do 85% of a bench press and hit
mm,
my lactate threshold and say that's going to correlate because, man, if you're doing 85%, you're probably only going to do 6 reps on a bench press, not anything more than that unless you're a genetic animal. So I guess, like, is that what you did? You focused more on hit training to get
I
adapted to that?
so my first couple years of college
Mhm.
were a lot more of that circuit training. Um,
Okay,
less weight, higher repetition. Um,
got it.
good. Then we kind of switched our training system. The middle distance group went into uh, the gym working out with our sprints and our jumps and our throwers athletes, and we
Okay.
kind of bringing in those power lift movements um, just because just to see experiment with it. And to be quite honest, um, I would say that benefited a lot. Um, and I would not just say for myself, but for um, other runners as well, even distance runners. For a 5K runner, uh, I would definitely, if I was to train them, I would definitely get them going on squats. I'm not going to throw on 3 plates and tell them, lift this, but obviously bringing in those primary movements of squats, maybe getting that same movement with lunges, but adding weight. And a lot of runners are scared of lifting weights, to be
Mm,
honest. And that's a reason why the injury rate is so high.
no
Um,
kidding.
just because the um, amount of mileage that they're doing, their muscles can't handle it. Um, because they're quite frankly, they're not strong enough. And to add that resistance training in is a huge part of being able to acclimate yourself to that amount of volume that you're doing on the track, on the road, doing all that mileage and doing that running training.
Okay.
But I guess to answer for myself, we did start getting into the power lifts. Definitely deep squats, barbell squats, power clean, a lot of power and speed, some snatch. As a runner, I don't necessarily need my chest. I know it's
Right.
looks better in a physique, but we did some bench, but more focused on the lower extremities, and definitely hit those power movements.
So when you switched to the strength, and it sounds even more like powerlifting exercises, did your 800 time go down? Did your 400 time go down? Were you maybe like, so what I'm thinking is if you do switch into more of like powerlifting or even like a strength training, first of all, for a runner, like I bet it's pretty hard to say, okay, I'm going to hit legs today after my run, and then go, and I'm going to pray that I'm not going to be super sore tomorrow because I know I have another run, especially if I'm a distance runner. Like even my light runs or short distance might be like 2 to 6 miles still. So I can see how that might be a challenge. Like, yes, I know it's good for me, but like there's never a good time to do weights. But on the other hand, I just want to know, like with you, so I guess two separate things here. But with you, like, did you see a big difference when you started doing like powerlifting movements? Maybe not in your overall time, but even like just how you felt, maybe coming out of the gate way faster, or I don't know, just did it change?
Yeah. So for me, and I'll talk for me personally as well as the general public. But for me, I did see improvement. I did feel better, felt stronger in my workouts.
Nice.
Just working on having that running efficiency, that form, instead of, I guess, lacking strength in parts where I shouldn't be. I felt stronger in those times. And so for even the 800, which some people, I mean, think it's a little longer distance, but I definitely felt just stronger, was able to, and I think that helped with the resistance training, helped just with the workouts, and to get through the workouts at a higher intensity than I did before, which then consequently helped me improve in my meets and in my races as well.
So it really did like become a game changer for you?
For me, definitely, yes. Now, I would say every athlete is different, and everyone will benefit from different things. So for some other 800, 400 runner, they might have seen some detraining, some imbalances in their running form or whatnot if they go too heavy into the gym. So it's important to find that balance going into the gym, doing strength work, not I guess overdoing it so that it would completely affect the way you run. We don't want to change your form in running, and so we just want to improve that and make it better. So for, I guess, with if we talk about a periodization, I guess, with the different seasons in for an athlete, off season, like any other sport, is crucial for a runner to get stronger. Maybe this is a time that your specific track workouts are not as intense. And so this is a good time to maybe build some muscle, maybe do a little bit more weight than you're comfortable with. And then as we kind of get into that preseason, we'll back off the amount of weight, still doing
Okay.
primary movements that will benefit keeping that muscular strength throughout the season. It's a long season, so just being consistent with that. That way, because we start in the off season, they are already adapted to that type of training. They might not be as sore as they would be if they just jumped into it and had these intense workouts on the track as well. And so definitely there is a switch when they get in. The intensity kind of changes from the gym and onto the track. But definitely that's very important to understand, because it can be very easy to burn yourself out if you're going 100% in the gym and then go the next day and go 100% on the track. It's going to be easy to hurt yourself or just burn yourself out.
Yeah, no kidding. So especially because okay, so how fast was a good 800 for you?
For myself, I was cut short, but I ran a 159 indoor.
Good mercy. Okay.
COVID
Wow.
kind of shortened our season. Wasn't able to get outdoor, but that was a time for myself.
Okay, yeah, that's impressive, by the way. I was I was gonna say sub 3 minutes. I wasn't like saying you're slow. I just didn't realize it was that fast for 800s. So you're not even hitting an oxidative or like an aerobic like threshold. So you're not even getting into a body system or an energy system where your body's like, yeah, we actually are going to use oxygen to fuel what we're doing right now. So if
Yeah.
you're in the gym doing anaerobic craziness all the time, and then you try to switch that to more explosive, still anaerobic, you might overdo it because again, anaerobic activity is harder around the body sometimes. And so I can see how if you don't back off the weights coming into preseason, it can keep you pretty snapped up by the time season comes, because off season and postseason, I mean, you can go heavier. I guess off season primarily, maybe not postseason. It's more recovery focused in form, but I think I think that's good to hear that it did change your game,
Mm.
because you look like a typical like middle distance runner. You seem like an average kind of average guy. So hearing that it works for you is kind of cool, because I can see how some people, if they're running middle distance and they don't have like the mesomorph body type like you do, they might not benefit from it, especially if they're like a tall ectomorph. So anyway, that's just a little thought.
Absolutely.
So I didn't realize it was 2 minutes. That's way faster than I expected.
Yeah.
So, what were some like things that you focused on during running? And so I'll throw in a few here to get the ball rolling. So in the gym, you can focus on weights, you can focus on repetitions, you can focus on 1 rep max percentages. Um, you can focus on like form and that kind of thing. And so with running, I think obviously we're more focused on time in general. But like with you and your programming, and maybe even if you've had any clients that you've made running programs for, what are some factors that you calculate if it's anything to do with any sort of testing? I have a VO2 max chart on here that I was going to show. This is a really good one to measure, especially if we're doing any sort of running aerobic activity. So for you, I don't even know if you calculated VO2 max, because again, it's not that it would be super essential to know, because you're not really getting into oxidative activity.
Mm.
So I don't know, like what types of things would you measure out? And then we can talk about VO2 max if that was one you did. Yeah, go ahead and jump into that.
Sure. Well, I guess testing. Um, like you mentioned before, distance for track, it's distance and time goes into that a lot. For what I guess what I think about while I'm running, very crucial, like I've mentioned before, running economy, how
Okay.
good your form is. So a lot of people really stress running faster needs to be from the practice you put in with the volume and distance you do, which could be very, very true with certain events. However, what's really important is that running economy. And what I mean by that, are you doing a type of movement while you're running that is just exhausting you for no reason? So maybe there's a runner that brings their arm through and it comes across in a transverse plane. And so they're bringing their body through, which doesn't seem like much of a difference. But when they're running, let's say a miler, if you're running a full mile with your arm swinging back and forth, that's going to exhaust your body much more than if you're staying in that satchel
Okay,
plane.
so there's like little tiny things. And this reminds me, the reason I jumped in here, I just finished watching recently, I just finished watching Breaking Two, the documentary on trying to do a sub 2 hour marathon.
Yes.
And they honed in on lactate thresholds and VO2 maxes, and they like the guy who failed in the documentary, but then eventually I broke the record in 2019, and a lot of that has to do with his shoes, but we're not going to go into that. But it's insane because they would talk about the running economy, like, man, why is he wearing himself out like this? And between those three runners, there was one guy who was so tight, he would like run as if he was like doing a barbell shrug and just
Mm,
holding that the whole
yeah.
time. And then the guy who was like probably one of the most world-renowned marathon runners, obviously now he is, just had a great posture, a relaxed look to him, but he's running at 13 miles per hour, and it's
Yeah.
crazy. That documentary was amazing, but they talked a lot about running economy. They'd bring out those pacers, those people to break the wind barriers, like so many little things
Yeah.
can be included in that. So I can see how that's something you want to think about while you're running.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And for getting into our anaerobic athletes, even down to our sprints, to our power athletes, very important to think about is our turnover speed. Are we keeping our hips under, or are we keeping our feet under our hips, or are we elongating our stride too much? So are we extending our legs too much? That's actually going to not benefit us. It's actually going to deplete the speed, and that a 100-meter runner needs to get out and get powerful. And something else that I've also talked about, I guess, is are you running on your heels? Are you running on your toes? Your your midsole of your foot. That's important also to think about. And so there's a lot of little things that people don't actually,
Totally.
a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
I guess going back to your testing, to be honest, for myself, we didn't do a whole lot of VO2 max testing in our training. I guess it seemed like every workout we did was a VO2 max test.
Yeah,
So,
right.
it to that point, I guess, but I never really did test what my max was and
I do
record.
okay. I do remember telling you because I was studying to get my exercise physiologist
Mm,
certification. I think if you remember this, and I was like, I had to memorize all these calculations and all these different testings, and that I used like maybe 3 of them twice in all my years of actually training clients. But I
Yeah.
remember calculating yours, which was obviously the highest between you, Aaron, Joe, myself. And I do know it was in the 40s, but I can't remember if we were, wait, was it 40s or? No, okay.
Remember?
We did the basic one, which the basic one is 15 multiplied by your maximum heart rate divided by your resting heart rate, which is such like it's so generalized that it's not that accurate. If you have a low resting heart rate, your VO2 max might not be that great. And so I
Mm,
remember doing yours, and yours was in the 60s. And you were like, yeah, that's right. And I was like, dude, that's not right. And so then we did this long calculation, which is on the screen. And then
mm.
we calculated. It was up there. I can't really remember where it was. Do you remember that conversation?
I vaguely,
Yeah.
but it's kind of crazy when you get into the elite athletes and how, I guess, how big they can get with their VO2 max. I know cycling, a lot of that oxidative athletes, you have the cross country skiers and cycling. I was actually really pumped to watch the Olympics this year, but I
Mm,
guess we'll wait. But yeah,
yeah. Hopefully.
I guess for 20-year-old superiors, 50, 52 and a half around, dude, some of these cyclers, like, they'll get up in the 90s. It's ridiculous.
You know how
I
much oxygen that is? So, okay, so for those listening, let me just say this. VO2 max is going to be the amount of oxygen consumed in a minute. And so, and how you measure that is milliliters per, I think it's kilogram. It's on the screen. Milliliters per kilogram per minute. Yes. So it's all that oxygen that is consumed and used as fuel. And then we can measure that through like heat expenditure and that kind of thing. But typically you just plug it in the calculation, figure out how much oxygen can your body use and get up to before you start burning out somewhere else or hitting lactate thresholds or something like that. That's going to impinge on that. But the VO2 max specifically hones in on the oxygen uh, usage during your workouts, especially if it's aerobic. That's how you really measure it. So if you see that in the calculation on the screen, it says walk time in minutes. Depending, I think this one was a mile. It might have been a mile and a half. But you plug in your time in minutes and then multiply by that. Some of them you plug them in per seconds. It's just there's a lot of calculations, but so yeah, so that's what that is. So keep going. I just needed to say that because I was like, that's
Yeah,
actually a
no.
big deal.
So I will say, with 800 training, 800-meter training, a lot of people look at an 800-meter. You run 600 meters and you hold on for 200 meters, and that's about that lactic threshold point.
Okay.
Max is fully depleted. So I guess for myself to break it down, um, in a race, I would try to come through the first 400 about 57 seconds, and coming around the next 200 meters in another, I don't know, say 30 seconds, 29 to 30 seconds. So that would put me at around a 126, 127, 600 meters.
And then you just give
So
everything you
that,
have.
if we think about our VO2 max, where Dustin explained, it's that amount of oxygen in 1 minute. And so for me, in 600 meters into my race, that's 27 seconds past that VO2 max. And so that's
Gotcha.
to put it into perspective, to think about where is my body in that moment. And something really important as I'm running, there's not a whole lot that I can do. right? So we've hit that VO2 max. We're there. We're that lactic, the hydrogen is building up in the lack of oxygen in my muscles is starting to increase, and we're starting to feel that. And so the best thing that I can tell myself is to stay relaxed and just drive, keeping my feet under my hips and not getting a whack with my form. And really, that's the worst part, is when you your form starts to fall apart, and you start getting tense. Maybe your shoulders will raise like that shrug. Maybe you're leaning back, or you're leaning too forward, which is restricting your hip extensions, and your turnover with your legs. So that's something really important to remember. And again, with the type of training, which I think we might get into, that's just it. You get acclimated to that point of threshold. And I remember at the beginning of the season, when I was 600 into my race, it was pretty painful. And I'm like, wow, I have 200 meters left to go. But as we trained that threshold, I got more acclimated, more comfortable to be at that threshold, but be able to push myself a bit more and a bit more, and so on. So
okay, sweet. Yeah, so you actually have a different perspective on how to say I'm hitting my VO2 max while in an exercise, because typically you can just calculate this and say your VO2 max is this, but you're saying I felt it. Like, I felt where I was at. Like, this is total oxygen capacity. This is all I can give.
yeah.
And you said in 600, which you still have 200 meters left. So yeah, okay,
So,
that makes sense.
yeah. So I mean, that as you improve, maybe you don't hit that VO2 max until 700 meters, and then you get better and better. The intensity.
Gotcha.
So
Nice. Okay. Yeah, that's a good perspective and a good like a way to like apply. How do you apply a VO2 max? Like, what does that mean? And actually, so like if someone was new to running, or like wanted to get into running, and let's say specifically middle distance, because that's like a good wheelhouse of experience for you, what would be some opinions, maybe some starting points, or just some tips to like keep in mind while starting a middle distance program, or even a running, if you want to go into that general space?
sure. Overall, I think this applies to any athletics. Um, don't give up. Be consistent. Time plus consistency equals growth. And as you maintain that consistency with your training, you'll see growth. And it might take a little bit. I remember my freshman year of college, I redshirted. I was out from a hamstring strain, just because of the amount of volume that I was doing with bad form. And I just wasn't, I guess, confident and acclimated to going from high school training to college training.
Well, I am kind of glad that happened, because I might not have met you if you weren't redshirting. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's true. That's everything. Everything happens and works out for a reason. So,
Yes.
but from there, I remember basically my training had started from scratch. And so I would say from the beginning of my sophomore year up until my senior year, it was just, you're cycling through. It took several years to get it down. Once I actually felt very confident in my running and saw improvements, I feel it was definitely my senior year where I definitely saw those drops in times in my.
Gotcha.
And so I just want to, for those that are listening, whatever goal you have, definitely just be consistent with it. And I know it's hard some days you might not be feeling it, but be consistent. And that doesn't mean you have to grind out every day. You might have to modify some days and might have to change up your training. But that's okay. And as long as you're sticking with it and consistent, you will see growth. So
Totally. And you're a good example of that. You had some big injuries freshman year, and then you stayed consistent the next two. Senior year comes around and you start dropping time, start showing improvements, start getting stronger, start getting more explosive. And COVID put like a damper on maybe the season, but you, like, as a whole person, like, definitely you were able to say, yeah, because of the consistency, I got to the point where I wanted to be, which was get my times faster, which was get stronger in these runs. So I mean, you're a good example of your own advice too, man. So that's awesome.
yeah,
So the last thing I want to ask is kind of like where you're at now, because like we talked the other night about some future things and just finding the niche, which it's really hard to if you're not like, man, I know where I want to be when I get out of exercise science. And if you don't know that going into like a 4-year degree, you're going to change so much as a person that by the end, you might be like, I actually don't want to do anything with, for your example, running. So for myself, I came in wanting to do rehab and I'm leaving still pursuing rehab. So it's
yeah.
easier. So coming from somewhere who has like kind of like the whole industry at his hands, like where's that niche coming, or where's it going, and like what's kind of like the future for you?
Sure. Yeah. Again, I would definitely say it's still new to me, still searching for that specific niche. And fitness, there's a lot of different ways I can take it.
Totally.
But I have been interested in the online training. I think COVID had definitely influenced that. A lot of people
Yeah.
are staying home. They're afraid of getting out and going to the gym. And I want to give that opportunity for those that are maybe staying home at stay-at-home workouts. I had mentioned earlier being passionate about that interval training, a lot of which you can do on your own with little bits of equipment, and you can get great at stay-at-home workouts. So actually, I want to mention, if you guys are on Instagram, I started a new fitness page that I
Yes,
started,
sir.
I guess, just posting stay-at-home workouts, HIIT workouts, and just some strength tips and whatnot. So go ahead and check it out. It's Coach Frazee, Frazee. But actually,
One word, that's it, Coach
I
Frazee.
coach underscore Frazee. So,
Okay.
but yeah, so, but I guess going back to what I'm doing now, I am training at a gym, Intentional Fitness, in South Springfield, Missouri. And so um, getting really great experience, just how to program strength programs
Yeah.
for people. Very different than my running endurance background, but it's really cool just getting into that, learning more about just the clients that I have, learning from the other trainer that I'm working with. It's just a great experience. So if you guys are in the Springfield area and need a place to work out, go ahead and check out Intentional Fitness. But I guess another thing,
Functional fitness.
so for something, I guess personally, what I'm
Yeah.
working now, because I'm I guess retired track.
Whoa, that's weird. You can like
Yeah,
put that in your Insta bio, like ex-college athlete.
I want to die and live in my past. Yeah. I think I definitely want to just, I mean, be functionable.
hmm
Um, I want to be stronger, get stronger, get into those powerlifting. I kind of got into it a little bit the past couple of years with our resistance training for track. Um,
Yep.
I think I enjoy some of those functional movements with squat and power clean. some deadlift and bench as well. So just kind of incorporating the training that I'm giving to my clients, to myself, and seeing where that takes me. And I guess I have not given up on running. The thought
Good.
of training for a triathlon has been on my mind.
Oh
But
my.
some biking and swimming in there as well. So we will see. We'll see what that looks like in the future.
Sweet, dude. That's cool. Well, I was gonna say maybe we can switch roles for a second because I've gotten into the running game. I don't like doing more than a 5K, but like tonight I'll probably do a 10K and just have a long run every now and then. But if you're gonna keep the running, you can keep it. So you just don't pass me in your numbers because
All
that'll put
right.
me to put
That's
put me to shame. Well, dude, thanks for jumping on. I've definitely actually learned a lot in a space that I haven't ever asked you about, to be
well, hey,
honest.
thanks for having me, and I'll definitely keep posted, and hopefully I can learn more about strength
Yes,
resistance. Well, so but
yes, definitely. And what was the Instagram again? What was that new at-home workouts?
yeah, Coach Frazee. So
Coach
Coach
Frazee.
underscore Frazee.
Okay,
Yeah.
sweet. All right, man. Well, thank you. Peace.